Third, we will continue to draw on our substantial counterterrorism capabilities to prevent ISIL attacks. Working with our partners, we will redouble our efforts to cut off its funding, improve our intelligence, strengthen our defenses, counter its warped ideology, and stem the flow of foreign fighters into and out of the Middle East. And in 2 weeks, I will chair a meeting of the UN Security Council to further mobilize the international community around this effort.
All right, folks, we could all hold our breath and see what the UN does. Anyway, joining us now is my friend Joe Connor, anti-terrorism advocate, whose father, Frank Connor, was killed by FALN terrorists at Franz's Tavern here in New York. And he also lost a cousin on 9/11. Joe, great to see you.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
And, you know, I would have you here even if it weren't for your dad being killed and your cousin being killed because, and I know that's what spurred you on to do and live the life you've led, but you've been so instrumental testifying before Congress, informing the world, anybody who will listen to you about, you know, the dangers posed by the likes of Eric Holder and the policies and the Obama policies. So let me ask you first, what did you think of Obama's speech yesterday? In particular, I thought of you when he said, you know, let's just make it clear, ISIL, as he calls them, is not Islamic and it's not a state.
Yeah, but it calls itself the Islamic State. So I'm thinking, well, with the United States, maybe under Obama, we're not really united either. I mean, what kind of nonsense is he talking about?
Are they nothing? I mean,
you know, he's trying to separate the Islamics from the Muslims from the terrorism, and you just can't do it. That's what we're faced with: Muslim extremist terrorism. Whether Obama wants to parse words or try to apologize or not, how can we defeat an enemy if you can't identify it?
Yeah. And you know, it's funny, not funny, but Bill Maher has been very strong in a Gimme 5 that I do at the end of the hour. In a previous hour, I played Bill Maher on with Charlie Rose, and he's really tells it like it is when it comes to Muslim fundamentalism. And he said, Charlie, because Charlie, again, with the Christians, are violent too. He said, Charlie, you know, in Mecca, he said, this is according to Bill Maher, they behead people in Mecca. He said, what do you think if they beheaded Christians in Vatican City? What do you think we would be saying about that? And, you know, I mean, and that really shut Charlie up for a second anyway.
Well, you know what? I've had this debate with a cousin of mine in Ireland, and he was, you know, I was saying it's the Muslim terrorism, and he compared them to the IRA. And I said, well, you know, the IRA was a terrible group. We have no doubt about that. I have no sympathy for the IRA, but they weren't bent on killing every Episcopalian and wiping out England. Killed my father. They are bent on the destruction of Western civilization and Christianity and Judaism.
Absolutely.
That's it.
And even either non-friendly parts of it, of other Muslims.
You know, and when I heard Obama say last night, well, the reason that they're not Muslim, not Islamic, is because they're killing other Muslims. That doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, I know.
They'll kill anybody who they feel is in their way.
Right. Right.
End of story.
A Muslim who you know differs with their philosophy.
Their philosophy, the Shiite or Sunni, they will kill them. That's what they do.
All right. Let's take it back to 9/11. I mean, you've already lost your father as a 9-year-old child, and now. So you come at it from a different perspective than I did, and you see the planes hitting the building. So what's going on in your mind, especially knowing that you have a relative in that building?
Well, you know, I commuted through the World Trade Center that day. I started work downtown on September 12th, 1988, so it was just about 13 years, and I commuted through, got to my office, said goodbye to my brother in the Trade Center, and I saw the planes hit and the buildings explode. And immediately, you know, my background told me it was terrorism. It was a crystal clear, beautiful day. It really couldn't have been anything else. But at first I thought it was a bomb because I didn't actually see the planes hit. Yeah. I saw the side of the building explode. I was on the 36th floor of 60 Wall Street and saw the side of the building. I said a bomb, and people in the office said, no, it was a plane. It was a big plane that was coming, you know, down, you know, over Manhattan. It was hard whether he was in World Trade Center 1 or 2. And turns out he was right above the blast, and I left him a voicemail. And I finally got my brother on the phone when this second plane hit, and I was on the phone with Tom, and I said, I saw the second building explode, and he's like, let's get out of here, and let's meet at Wendy's on Water Street. And I said, okay, I'm the hell out of here. And some people left the building, some people didn't. And there's pandemonium in the streets when I realized I didn't know where Wendy's was on Water Street. And finally I found it, and I found my brother and a woman who I worked with. And it was one of the most horrific days. That night, we got home and I drove to my cousin's house in Franklin Lakes, and all the people were waiting around, and it was so much like when my father was killed.
And there was no definitive word, obviously, at that time. No word at all.
Everyone was dead.
Yeah.
But I mean, we knew. I mean, from what I had seen, we knew what happened. But my poor uncle, who suffered through with my dad, and now his son, he was very hopeful. And but you knew the bond traders, a guy like Steve, who was a risk taker. If there was any way that they could have gotten out, they would have done it. That's the kind of, he was an outdoorsman. They all were. That whole group of guys, they were aggressive and smart and able to do things, but they were just helpless. Yeah. And it's hard to think it was 13 years ago, and his kids have grown up very well, and his wife has done very well, and my Uncle Don and Aunt Pat and his sisters have done great. So we're very fortunate that way.
It is amazing that it's 13 years. Where are we now? I mean, since 9/11, since that time, that was almost like a starting point for you and others like Deborah Burlingame, who was on the show earlier. Policies of Eric Holder now carried over into this administration. We've seen Obama's policies towards terror, not using the words that need to be used, wanting to close Gitmo, trading the Taliban terrorists. We've seen all of these things. So where are we?
Well, you know what? Unfortunately, I believe we're now with the Islamic terrorists where we were when the Clintons released the FALN. In other words, my father's murderers were released for politics, and now I see this terrorism falling into politics the same way it was before. And it's so tragic that that's happening. Number one, because we need to be safe, but number two, because we've given up that spirit that we had. I don't know if you remember in the days, weeks, and months after 9/11, we were all a little shaken, but we came together as a country.
Absolutely.
And we put the political stuff aside. Policies or not, they liked Bush at that time, and they stood up for our country.
His approval rating, it was up in the 80s, 90s.
It was through the roof,
Yeah.
and deservedly so. And now I see that we've fallen back to the partisan politics. We've fallen back to politicizing Guantanamo Bay, to who we're releasing. Those terror releases that he did, that was a setup. I mean, that he just wanted to release those guys. He could have traded for a can of rocks. He just wanted to get those guys out. So we just see absolute politics with the fight on terror, the war on terror now, which we're not even using anymore. So we've fallen back to the FALN stuff, and it's tragic.
Although it's interesting, John Kerry today, for those who might have been, and General Hayden was on with us just a moment ago, and by the way, he said we're both less safe here and more prepared at the same time. But nonetheless, more safe, but in more danger. He feels that the threat. I'm sorry, I'm misrepresenting what I said. The threat is bigger, but we're safer, so we're better, we're more prepared to handle it. But that's neither here nor there. So John Kerry, on the heels of Obama finally saying, we're going to go destroy ISIS and telling us basically how we're going to do it, today tells CNN we're not at war with ISIS. I don't know if he said ISIS or ISIL, but he said it's a very significant counter-terror operation.
I think
you figure that out.
You can't. Look, if you're the President of the United States and you see two of our countrymen beheaded, and you kind of brush it off and go play golf, there's something wrong. And it's not the optics of it. It's the willingness to do what he did.
Yep.
If I'm the president of this country and one of my people is beheaded like that, I am angry, and we are at war.
Like Joe Biden was. To his credit, gates of hell.
The gates of hell. He did use, it's hard for me to
No,
ever
me
give
too, I know, but he did say what we were thinking.
He did. Yeah. And Obama's not doing that. And he will never do that. We need to annihilate. And and it can't be small surgical strikes either. If we're going to use air power, the B-52 should be rolling in there, and just show. If you're a sports guy, if you're a pitcher who's a little wild sometimes, you get the attention of the batter.
Yeah.
You can't be leaning over the plate. I think every now and then we have to say, you know what, we're going to go for it, and we're going to make these people uncomfortable, and they're not going to know what we're going to do.
So when you come up the next time to the plate or think about it, you're not going to do it.
You're not going to do it.
Great seeing you, Joe.
My
Thank
pleasure,
you so
Steve.
much. All right, folks, very interesting conversation. And coming up next on the Steve Malzberg Show, another Gimme 5 segment, and I think you're going to find very interesting on this 13th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks here on the Steve Malzberg Show.